Hi, I'm Kristen. Welcome to Trigger Your Truth. I don't have my patio set up, but I had to get out here because, wow, we have some beautiful weather and it just, you know, makes me happy to be outside. So I brought a chair in from the outside so I could sit out here in the sun. Um, and hopefully you guys can capture some of this lovely weather we're having here in KC. Sorry I didn't get a video up earlier this week. That time change really messed me up quite a bit. And actually, I went to visit my kiddos at college and um, had a wonderful mom's weekend with my daughter and her sorority, which was her last one. So, yeah, a little bit late this week, but needless to say, here I am, and I'm grateful you're tuning in. Okay, well, I kind of took some notes. So I could stay on track and not talk too long. So, the shadow, we've talked about that quite a bit in these last couple of episodes. And, I know it's hard. We all have our experiences and trauma and relationships that, definitely impacted us and help to mold our beliefs and values and ego protective behaviors. And I know it's kind of hard to get to the nitty gritty of that, doing that shadow work, to understand ourselves better. So I kind of want to come in from a different, got me a big rose quartz too in my hand, want to come in with something else to consider, um, because this definitely, imprinted on our subconscious um, mind, as well as help to create those same beliefs and values that molded our behaviors and who we were. And that's really kind of coming in from a awareness of how we were raised, church, media, radio, movies, social media, society, war, politics, teachers, peers, friends, parents. All of it definitely helped to mold us, and in some respects, um, help to create those protective ego behaviors. And I'm just challenging you, maybe in a different way, if you will, to take a look at that for yourself and kind of get real with that, and ask yourself some questions. And maybe it's easier to kind of start here and understand how that shadow was created, um, versus going deep into the trauma, because I know our traumas differ, and some are a lot harder than others. So maybe if we start with what imprinted on us and understand that, that can help us to understand some of our reactionary behaviors, that we think are protecting us. And, it's the same thing. It ultimately doesn't, it is protecting us, but it ultimately is fear based, right? Um, I mean, it is fucking fear based. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Um, and I get it. It's, we're still getting raw. We're still trying to understand ourselves. So we have to understand why those behaviors were created and what's what are we afraid of. And some of this, just like I said, just imprinted on us, and we honestly, you don't even know that until you really kind of start to ask yourself questions and get real. So think of it kind of like a mirror. It's almost like we're all living in this big giant mirror around us, and it's reflecting back to us. And what's being reflected back to us is probably something we need to, get curious about and try to understand. So, let's say I just got my feelings hurt and judged this person. So I called a friend and, you know, judged the other person and, you know, created drama and, kind of try to control the outcome and play the victim. And so what was I afraid of, right? If I'm doing that, what was I afraid of? Was I afraid of being judged myself because I'm already judging myself? And am I judging myself and holding myself to these beliefs and standards that have imprinted on me all these years? And for me, once I started to kind of look at situations personal to me like that, yeah, that that is exactly what was happening. In the end, it was I was already judging myself. I was already insecure. I was already trying to control whatever outcome I wanted to my benefit. So yeah, I was trying to live up to what was programmed in me, to what imprinted, to what helped mold these ego protective behaviors. Um, and it's kind of crazy when you start to connect those dots and widen your lens, right? It's kind of crazy just how much of it there really is out there. And still today, I mean, we really have to be so aware of ourselves and so in alignment, um, that we understand and we don't allow that to continue to happen, right? Because then that's very much fear based again. Um, so just kind of a couple things, I'm throwing out there that resonated with me. And like I said, I'm not an expert. I am just being real and sharing, what helped me, because I was in a dark spot. Um, but going back and just really kind of understanding what was happening in the world, in the country, on TV, society, at the time, this made some sense to me. And I kind of touched upon one of them in the last episode about feminism, right? Don't get me wrong. There was a benefit to that and it needed to happen. But did we go too far? So feminism is absolutely one that I still question. And I still try to look at very critically because so much of that was, like I mentioned last time, don't show emotion, get up. You don't need a man. Hopefully, you can still hear me because here comes the lawn companies. Um, pick yourself up. Don't cry. Don't be vulnerable. You don't need a man. Go, go, go. Do, do, do. Be strong, be competitive. Um, Crying is weak. So once again, we're completely disconnected from the divine feminine energy within us, in our true self, you know, and you just conform to that, thinking, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to show my emotion, and I'm just going to ignore it. And, the energy gets stuck, resentment grows. Then you learn how to protect yourself so you don't have to be vulnerable or show that um, emotion in the future or admit it out loud. And, you know, we're just plowing along and, staying true to the fear and not being authentic, and definitely not coming from a place of love and understanding and compassion, right? Especially for me, I wasn't even showing myself that. So then I kind of started to think about, okay, let's look at the church. I went to church, tried it a couple times. Honestly, it didn't resonate with me at the time, and I am not knocking church. Please do not think that. I think it is great. Um, I think what what made it a challenge for me that I had to look at was it was more about the organization of it and the message being shared, because what I experienced was a very hypocritical message. Like, you do this, it's bad. You do this, you're sinning. You do this, you're going to hell. If you do this, you'll go to heaven. If you have sex, it's bad before you're married. If you dress sexy, that's too much. It was just very much fear based. I didn't know it at the time it was fear based, but in hindsight, it's fear based, right? Be good or else. At least that's the message I was getting. Now, I'm not saying all churches are like that by any means, and I do go to church, um, but the message is important to me because I feel like, especially in the '60s and '70s, it was very fear. Conform or else. If you don't conform, you're out. Um, my takeaway from it was, God, I was being judged all the time. Um, and then what did I do? I'd go out and, you know, do something bad and get in trouble with my parents and then judge myself and feel bad and not like myself for being human and making a mistake, right? Um, so church. And then even think about like, got to look at my notes. Um, sex, right? There was a time, we couldn't, and not so much even for me, but, it wasn't talked about. It was a means to have children, not to enjoy, not to um, have freedom with, if you will. Um, and then the sexual revolution in the '70s and the peace, love, happiness, all that starts to come in, and it starts to change a little bit. But, when you're raised by mom, then, right, that that's her belief, that's her value system, because that's all she's ever known, then it does, imprint and in some respects get handed down to you, because you can't have those conversations with your mom, right? Because she was raised not to talk about it, and I'm raised not to talk about it. And honestly, my first eye-opening sexual conversation was when I went to college in a human sexuality class, and the first day we had to get real and raw, and it was just, holy cow, what's happening? Um, but kind of the taboo of it, right? So for the longest time, you know, it I felt like I was being judged, right? And gosh knows the girl in high school that I went to high school with that had, slept with 3 guys or whatever her sophomore year, was she judged? Most certainly, so it just fear, right? That's all fear again. Because to judge her, we're ultimately really afraid of being judged ourselves, and it's just not authentic behavior. So you have that, and then, really quite impactful for me was honestly the 80s and material and greed and, you know, you got to have this and you got to do that. And it just started to really come on strong. I mean, you got your music videos, MTV, you know, it was a very self absorbed, singular, all about me kind of message, right? Um, and it was very, it was hard to kind of love yourself a lot because then all you did was start to really ultimately compare yourself to others all the time. And how are you ever going to feel good about yourself if you're comparing yourself to others all the time? So, when that came on strong, they have more money than I do. They have a nicer car than I do. Um, they're wearing designer clothes. I have to have designer clothes. I want designer clothes. I can't afford designer clothes. It was like that really heavy. Um, I didn't feel good about myself if I didn't have my Jordache jeans on or my Izod polo, which, thankfully my granny bought me one of each. And trust me, those were in my weekly rotation because at that point I was a cool kid and felt cool all because of a material item, and obviously, I'm a teenager. Teenage years are hard anyhow. And now we're comparing ourselves to, the next person that has 5 Izods on their shirt and, Calvin Klein and Jordache jeans. And, it's kind of hard to love yourself. So once again, it's just putting more emphasis on I'm judging myself again and I'm comparing myself to others. And therefore, my ego behaviors get emphasized because it's a way to protect myself. So I start to judge them, or I play victim, or I get really competitive with them, all so that I don't have to own those feelings and be honest with myself, to show more of that shadow side and understand it. Um, So, yeah, I mean, it all affects us, right? And all day long, back in the 80s and 90s, right? Do this diet, do that diet, be at size zero. Look at the models, look at Victoria's Secret catalog, look at the runways, look at their long hair, look at how perfect their makeup is at all times. And, they're all a size zero, right? If I'm a size zero, I am probably in a coffin. Sure didn't teach me how to love my body, but it sure did teach me how to try every fad diet there was and constantly be in a state of diet, right? That and God knows how long that even lasted. I mean, that lasted till even after I had kids, to be honest with you, that was still hanging out in there. I need to get down and lose the baby weight and get back to my pre-mom body. And, so then when I would, you know, feel insecure or be up against other moms in a mommy's play group. So then I try to outdo them in some other way and get really competitive and think that that's going to make me feel better about me, all because I haven't lost the baby weight, and, you know, my fad diet didn't work, and I can't lose the weight, and, you know, so it's just like we're living in that mirror, right? It's like this whole mirror is around us the whole time, and it's here showing us that. And we have to be honest with ourselves and realize that mirror is probably pointing back at us for a reason, and it's to get to know us better. And all of this is also the shadow, right? It's the stuck energy, the imprinted and programmed energy that's, coupled in there with our, traumas, our experiences, our heartbreaks, um, whatever it is, that's all together that created that very reactionary, not authentic, somewhat, well, it is a low vibe, low energy, you know, judgmental, trying to control the outcome, victim mindset, anger, hate, jealousy behavior that isn't one of love and understanding and compassion for ourselves, how we were raised, the cultural imprints, right? I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot we kind of have to unpack. Um, yeah, it's a lot. But my gosh, it's so freeing when we understand it and we start to release it. Um, and it doesn't, you know, you don't have to sit at home and hide and go crazy trying to understand all this and you're going to be done in 2 weeks. It's very much about baby steps and just being a little bit different the next day and having a little bit more understanding about who you are and why you are, and then doing it again and again and again. And as time goes on, you honestly do get better at it. It gets easier. You see it when you're in it. You can pull yourself back and you could sit with it and take action on it later. And when you do that, it's a very genuine, compassionate, loving reaction, not one that's trying to control the outcome and fear-based. So told you I'm going to share real stories for me that to kind of help tie all this in. So, as I'd mentioned, I think, gosh, at the very beginning video, it was kind of like 2017 to 2021 that just kind of, it was like the universe shut me down and it was one thing after another. And I was just kind of in a place where I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening, but I've got to change. And, kind of like my rock bottom, if you will. And so here's 2 examples of the mirror that was all around me. And this wasn't, the very first event to kind of trigger everything. This is kind of middle-ish. But it ultimately catapulted me wanting to get curious and understand all of this better, especially myself. So there was an incident, I don't even remember when, and this involves my kids. Uh, and it's their story to tell, so I'm going to share it from my perspective. But the first one, for me, it was kind of, I felt like a little bit of a bullying event that happened to my oldest, and it was with a friend group on social media. And that's all you need to know about that. But Mama Bear, right? Mama Bear. Man, when your kid hurts, you hurt, right? And then it's anger. And then it's like, wow, wow, I'm not going to let them get away with this. I'm going to control the outcome. They're going to pay for this, and, um, you know, they'll all be friends again. And, all that stuff that I tried to tell myself, right? So what happens? I don't sleep. At some point, I can't even keep food in me. My body is that stressed out. I'm crying. I am full of anxiety. I can't even keep my focus on just getting through the day or working or any of it. And I judge, right? I judge the girls on the other side. I judge their moms. I talk about it, create drama, share it, play victim. If I run into them, let them know I know. I am Mama Bear. My claws were out, right? How horrible is that, right? I could say that now about myself without crying, but seriously, how horrible is that? Kind of want to cry again. Shame on me, right? And why? Because I was afraid. I was afraid of my daughter, what she was feeling. I was afraid I couldn't help her. I was afraid of being vulnerable with myself and saying, oh gosh, you know, I, I remember being hurt like that. I remember, you know, being called fat and ugly, or, and it's hard, right? So all I wanted to do was to protect her and control the outcome. And I was trying my hardest. Mama Bear was out, right? So gosh darn it, I was going to be mean. I was going to be protective. Um, that was my job. I was going to keep everybody safe. I was, you know, going to teach her how not to feel or pick herself back up, right? Pick yourself back up. Don't be vulnerable. Don't cry. Get back up. Go do it. Wow, right? That's that's kind of a shit show. They're kids. It's their experiences to live, right? This is how they learn. This is how they grow. Just like we had to. All I needed to do was to love her unconditionally, be there, and not try to control it, make it better, help her not feel it. I needed to help her feel it. I needed to encourage her to understand herself, right? one big giant mirror around me there and included everything, right? Shortly after that, another kid instance, probably about a year later, maybe. But this time I'm exhausted, okay? I spent a year overthinking, anxiety, overeating, not eating, not sleeping, trying to control. I had to fix it. This is the outcome. Darn it, I was going to get us the results we needed in this family. And a year later, you know what? Another learning experience for another child of mine. And this time I kind of was already starting the process of understanding myself a little better. So I thought I'm going to kind of sit back a little bit. I'm not going to focus on this. I'm not going to try to fix it and create the outcome I feel like there should be. I'm just going to love my kid, let him know I'm here to talk, and just have an open door. But the mama bear was on the other side this time, right? And there was so much mama bear being thrown out. I'm in my mirror, right? And I'm like, well, holy heck, right? That's what it looks like when you step back and see yourself on the other side. So I let it be a mirror for me. And between those two, it was like a big, like, aha, right? Um, a big aha. And I get it, right? I understand the mama bear on the other side. Protection and fear and anger and, you know, not understanding and victim. And I get it. I get it because I did it, right? I just did it in a different situation. But having those kind of back to back, which now I'm convinced those happened to me and not even my kids because I needed the mirror. Because that just really ultimately catapulted me into wanting to understand everything. Um, but moving through, that second story, um, when I didn't try to control the outcome, it's whatever happens, happens. All I'm going to do is love my kid and help him, right? Um, I didn't lose sleep. I didn't go from overeating to, not eating, um, or overthinking, or not being able to focus, or I just didn't, those behaviors weren't there, right? And it was as hard as both situations were, right, for everyone, all sides, my family included. Um, it just is really powerful to understand it. Um, I have apologized to a couple of those moms from my first story. I had to forgive myself for, being ashamed of that awful behavior that was not moving with love and compassion or forgiveness. It was judgmental and ego based and out of fear, controlling, trying to control. Um, and they're supposed to learn too. And every experience is that opportunity to hold up the mirror if it's not all around you already, so that you can understand all of it, right? In the second story I shared, um, that ended, um, pretty much with severing of relationships, and that's okay. Um, I'm very grateful for the time that all those people were in our lives. There were some great times and some great memories, and maybe that's just what it was supposed to be, in the past. And you know, all parties, I believe, are thriving. I know my son is. Yeah, but for me, that was huge, right? That mirror. Um, it just made me more curious. I just wanted to understand more and more and more about myself. Um, and then understand energy more, right? The mind, the body, and the soul, when it's connected, you don't get out of control like that and control and judge and gossip and drama and be mean and show it. And, you know, you live there with compassion and forgiveness and understanding, and it's okay. You know, it's okay if it was supposed to end. It's okay if it's supposed to keep going. It's okay. It's so much more alignment, right? The energy's moving. It's not stuck in my gut because I was overeating, right? It's not stuck um, in my root chakra because I wasn't grounded. I wasn't connected. I was forcing stuff. I wasn't flowing. Um, yeah, ultimately, that really got me curious. That is where I really started to learn more um, about myself, about energy, the science behind it. It's all out there if you guys want to read it. Whether it's the, universal laws and how they're perceived today with quantum physics and science to, you know, the divine feminine, right? The emotional and the energetic intelligence that allows us to, step back and act intentionally with love and compassion. Um, so yeah, so baby steps. So remember, it's all in creating those new habits for yourself, whatever that is. Like I've discussed in these last episodes and so forth. Um, get up early, set your intentions, no phone. Be grateful for that cup of coffee you're drinking. Get outside if you can early in the morning. Turn the noise off. Turn it off the radio in the car to work. Take off the headphones when you're walking outside to class or work or school or, whatever it is. Turn off the noise. Be grateful for the sun, the trees, the crystals. You, um, be grateful. Talk out loud. Just talk out loud. I love myself. I'm having a great day. It's beautiful out. Thank you. What a great day. I love it. I feel good. Talk out loud. Remember the ground, clear, and protect, which the SAGE method um, got me doing that. And that's just a great way to kind of rebalance yourself and center yourself so that, when we're doing all day long, and, now we're coming home to our family and our loved ones and our community, we can kind of, release the day, realign, get back to center, um, and be present so that we can, you know, have joy and be in the moment that matters, right? Um, and then hopefully you got curious already. Hopefully you picked up your crystals, or started with chakras, or started with astrology or tarot oracle readers. Um, all of that really helped me understand me. And maybe let's add a new one this week. Take a look at something that imprinted on you. It's different how it imprints on everybody, but just take a look, see if it helped kind of enable or enforce some of those ego protective behaviors. Um, because that's what we're looking to release, are those behaviors. Because once we release those, it's peaceful. It really is peaceful. Okay. If you're in the Kansas City area, um, hit Trigger Your Truth on Instagram. I'm getting ready in April to start back up the women's groups with some guest speakers and some healings. Um, so I'm going to put those invites out there on my Instagram. And yeah, I'm grateful for you guys. So thanks for sitting outside with me today. Hopefully you're able to sit outside somewhere too. Feet to grass, feet to grass. That's really a good thing right now. It's funny how energetically better you feel when you spend a little time doing that. So if you could do it, get out and do it. Okay. Like, comment, subscribe, share. I would love it. Um, yeah, I'm just out here talking out loud. So I would love to know if anything is actually resonating or triggering you to get curious, or if anything helps. I would love it. I would be really, really grateful. Okay. Have a good rest of your week.